Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Commander's Forge. My name is Andy Bentley, and the Forge is an area for me to talk about Magic, Commander, and anything else while I drag this whole mental health thing back to where it's supposed to be. Now, today I would like to talk about a creature type. That creature type is allies. Now, allies have existed in Magic since the time of the first Zendikar block. That block consisted of 3 sets, which is Zendikar, Worldwake, and Rise of the Eldrazi. Now, after that, there's a bit of a gap until we get to Battle for Zendikar and Oath of the Gatewatch. And then we kind of assumed that was going to be it for a while. And then we made it back to Zendikar as the adventure set. And the fact that there was quite literally no allies was a real bummer. Like, the set was fun, but there were no new tech for allies. Well, smash cut to earlier this year, and now we have the Avatar The Last Airbender set, which brought back new allies as well as new strategies for allies. And so it kind of led to a lot of, do I want to fully replace my 5-color ally deck with something different? Because there is no new 5-color ally. And I thought, no, I think I still want to keep that deck together, but update it. And so I did that, and I ended up only replacing, I think, like 15-ish cards. And I kept looking at all of the new allies, and I was like, man, I really want to do something else. And, like, we had new options, like the Jeskai Sokka just kind of goes hard. But then I was thinking, no, I want to maybe go with the bant Katara, the Katara the Fearless. And the more I thought about it, the more I kind of liked the idea. I started looking at the allies in Bant. And I kind of came up with this sub-theme that actually does run in my 5-color allies list. And that's +1/+1 counters. Because there's quite a few that say do a thing and put a counter on this. And then I kind of expanded that into, well, what other utility creatures would I want? Like, though most of the deck is creatures, what non-creature things would I want to put in? And I kind of sat with it for like 2 or 3 months before I finally, pulled the trigger on kind of putting together what I'm calling version 1 of the Katara the Fearless deck. And I'm going to talk about that when I get to the next part of the podcast. But I kind of wanted to sit with like the evolution of allies throughout the years, when you have things like back in Zendikar, them triggering off of it or another ally entering the battlefield. Like, just taking one out. Ondu Cleric. It says whenever it or another ally enters the battlefield under your control, you gain life equal to the number of allies you control. And that's pretty consistent for that era of allies. And then after that, when you get to the Battle for Zendikar and Oath of the Gatewatch, Battle for Zendikar followed a similar ability called Rally, which just says rally dash, and then whenever it or another ally enters the battlefield under your control, you do a thing. Like Tejuru Warcaller has a rally ability that says whenever it or another ally enters the battlefield under your control, creatures you control get +2/+2 till end of turn. Oath of the Gatewatch went slightly off kilter with the cohort ability, which was the ally ability, which was tap this and another ally to get an effect, which turned it from a triggered ability into an activated ability, and the popularity of those cards is basically nowhere. And then when you get past that and into the avatar stuff, they kind of break all of the rules that you get with allies. Like, yes, a lot of them have triggered ability for like them entering or when another thing enters, but it's very much not the same. And so it kind of got to the point where I'm like, well, how do I want to, build this so that I can get the most kind of value out of it? And I can actually break it down to the two cards that kind of made me want to build this deck besides the Katara. And that was the Earth King's Lieutenant and the Avatar Enthusiasts. Very innocuous cards, but they kind of, showed there was like a +1/+1 theme we could go with. And so that's what I did. And now I'm going to take a quick break. And then when I come back, I'm going to talk about the cards that made it in. Not in exhaustive detail. And why. And, we'll go from there. I'll be right back. And welcome back. Now, like I said, I do want to talk about this Katara the Fearless. So she is bant, which is green, white, blue, for a human warrior ally. She's a 3/3, and she says whenever a triggered ability of an ally you control triggers, it triggers an additional time. And allies do love their triggers. So, starting back in the original Zendikar era, the creatures that I was drawn to most were the ones that could put a counter on themselves. So, first up there we have Zihada Freeblade. It's a single white mana for a 0/1 human soldier ally. When it or another ally enters, you can put a counter on him, and that's the card. Next up, we have Kazandu Blademaster, which is white for a 1/1 human soldier ally with first strike and vigilance. Whenever it or another ally enters, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. We have Oran Reef Survivalist, 1 and a green for a 1/1 human warrior ally. Whenever it or another ally enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Then we have Umara Raptor, 2 and a blue for a 1/1 bird ally with flying. Whenever it or another ally enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Next we have Greypelt Hunter, 3 and a green for a 2/2 human warrior ally with trample. Whenever it or another ally enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Then we get into the couple here that do that but have a bonus effect. So Turntimber Ranger is 3 green for a 2/2 elf scout ally. Whenever it or another ally enters the battlefield under your control, you can put a 2/2 wolf creature token onto the battlefield, and then if you do, you put the counter on the Turntimber Ranger. And then finally in this category, we have the Talus Paladin, 3 and white for a 2/3 human knight ally. Whenever it or another ally enters the battlefield under your control, allies you control gain a lifelink till end of turn, and you may put a counter on the Paladin. So that was like the base of what I wanted to do, but there's also just a lot more things in Bant that are very beneficial to doubling triggers, and some that necessarily aren't, but are still good enough I included. So first up we have Halimar Excavator. 1 and a blue for a 1/3 human wizard ally. Whenever it or another ally enters the battlefield under your control, target player mills the top X cards of their graveyard, where X is the number of allies you control. Seascape Aerialist is 4 and a blue for a 2/3 merfolk wizard ally. Whenever it or another ally enters, your creatures gain flying till end of turn. Tajuru Archer is 2 and a green for a 1/2 human elf ally. Whenever it or another ally enters, you can have it deal damage to target creature with flying equal to the number of allies you control. Ondu Cleric is 1 and a white for a 1/1 core cleric ally. And when it or another ally enters, you gain life equal to the number of allies you control. And then Kabira Evangel, 2 and a white for a 2/3 human cleric ally. Whenever it or another ally enters the battlefield under your control, you may choose a color. If you do, allies you control gain protection from the chosen color till end of turn. And yeah, that's a lot, but I have a few more that don't necessarily follow the old rules of allies. They're outliers. The first one is the Dwari Shapeshifter. It's 1 and a blue for a 0/0 Shapeshifter ally, and it enters its copy of any ally on the battlefield, which can give us another way to trigger whatever we want to trigger. Next up, we have the 2 that have activated abilities from that era. The first one is Seagate Loremaster, 4 and a blue for a 1/3 merfolk wizard ally, and you can tap it to draw a card for each ally you control. And then Harabaz Druid, 1 and a green for a 0/1 human druid ally. Tap, add X mana of any one color to your mana pool, where X is the number of allies you control. And moving right along into the next era of allies, that brings us to the Battle for Zendikar and Oath of the Gatewatch allies, to which this is the smallest group, and that's mostly because a lot of your allies fall into different colors than Bant in that set. But starting us off with the one I mentioned earlier, Tajuru Warcaller is 3 green for a 2/1 elf warrior ally with Rally. Whenever it or another ally enters under your control, creatures get +2/+2. Core Entanglers is 4 and a white for a 3/4 core soldier ally. Again with Rally. Whenever it or another ally enters, you can tap a creature an opponent controls. Lantern Scout is 2 and a white for a 3/2 human scout ally. With Rally, creatures you control gain lifelink. Hero of Gomafada is 4 and a white for a 4/3 human knight ally with the Rally ability to give creatures you control indestructible till end of turn. And then we have, again, a couple of outliers. First up, we have the Beastcaller Savant, 1 and a green for a 1/1 elf shaman ally. It has haste, and you can tap it to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Spend this mana only to cast creature spells. And then the only inclusion from Oath of the Gatewatch, because it kind of plays into what I want to do, is Munda's Vanguard. 4 and a white for a 3/3 core knight ally with the cohort ability of tap an untapped ally you control, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. And that moves us into the Avatar The Last Airbender cards. Starting off with the 2 I mentioned earlier, Earth King's Lieutenant, which was the real driving force behind this deck, is a green and a white for a 1/1 human soldier ally with trample. When this enters, put a +1/+1 counter on each other ally creature you control. And then whenever another ally you control enters, you put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. This card almost made me want to get back into Standard with like a Bant allies list that's just playing like 4 of these, 4 of the mana guy, and then like 2 Kataras, 2 Sukis, and just kind of go ham, you know what I mean? Next up we have the Avatar Enthusiasts, 2 and a white for a 2/2 human peasant ally. Whenever another ally you control enters, you put a counter on this creature. Then we get into Appa the Vigilant, 5 white for a 6/6 bison ally with flying and vigilance. Whenever Appa or another ally you control enters, creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain flying and vigilance till end of turn. Katara, the heroic healer, is 4 and a white for a 2/3 human warrior ally with lifelink. And when she enters, you put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. And then we get into just, like, generically good cards. Starting with Sokka, Lateral Strategist. 1 and then 2 hybrid white-blue for a 2/4 human warrior ally with vigilance. And whenever it and at least one other creature attacks, draw a card. I actually had a thought for, like, just a Sokka turn 'em sideways kind of deck, but the thought process there never expanded much past that. Next we have Aang the Airbending Master, which is 4 and a white for a 4/4 human avatar ally. When he enters, airbend another target creature, which is a triggered ability, so you can copy it. And then it says, whenever one or more creatures you control leave the battlefield without dying, you get an experience counter. So the interesting fact about if you double the trigger, it's 2 separate triggers, which means you get 2 experience counters. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, you create a 1/1 white ally creature token for each experience counter you have. Which, again, good for triggering those old allies. Next we have Aang and Katara, 3 and then Bant, so green, white, blue, for a 5/5 human avatar ally. It says, whenever Aang and Katara enter attacks, create X 1/1 white ally creature tokens, where X is the number of tapped artifacts and or creatures you control. So yes, I do have things that give them vigilance, but it's kind of like a pick your kit here. Like, do you want to just flood the board with tokens? Don't play the things that give them vigilance. You want to just keep attacking and be able to block? Play the things that give them vigilance. Next up we have the Blue Spirit. 3 and a blue for a 2/4 human rogue ally. You may cast the first creature spell you cast each turn as though it had flash. And whenever a non-token creature you control enters during combat, draw a card. Next we have Jet, the Rebel Leader. 3 and a white for a 3/4 human rebel ally. Whenever Jet attacks, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a creature card with mana value 3 or less from among them onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking. The rest go onto the bottom of your library in a random order. I also have the, Master Piandao, which is 4 and a white for a 4/4 human warrior ally. With first strike, and whenever he attacks, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal an ally, equipment, or lesson card from among them. Put it into your hand. The rest go on the bottom in a random order. Next, we have the Kyoshi Warrior Exemplars. 3 and a green for a 4/3 human warrior ally. Whenever this creature attacks, if you control 8 or more lands, creatures you control get +2/+2 till end of turn. Next, we have Aang at the Crossroads. So that's 2 and Bant, so green, white, blue, for a 3/3 human avatar ally with flying. And when he enters, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You can put a creature card with mana value 4 or less from among them onto the battlefield, with the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. And then it says, whenever another creature you control leaves the battlefield, transform Aang at the beginning of the next upkeep. And he becomes Aang, Destined Survivor. He is a 4/4 avatar ally with flying. Land creatures you control have vigilance, and at the beginning of combat on your turn, Earthbend 2. He was also in high contention to be the commander of the deck originally, but then Katara did more fun things, so we went with her. Next up, we have Suki, the Courageous Rescuer. 1 white for a 2/4 human warrior ally. Other creatures you control get +1/+0. And whenever a permanent you control leaves the battlefield during your turn, create a 1/1 white ally creature token. This ability triggers only once each turn. Next we have Suki, the Kyoshi Warrior. 2 and then 2 hybrid green-white for a star 4 human warrior ally. Power is equal to the number of creatures you control. And whenever she attacks, create a 1/1 white ally creature token that's tapped and attacking. Next up, we have Hakoda, the Selfless Commander. 3 and a white for a 3/5 human warrior ally with vigilance. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may cast ally spells from the top of your library, and you can sacrifice a coda. Creatures you control get +0/+5 and gain indestructible till end of turn. Next, we have the Great Divide Guide, which is 1 and a green for a 2/3 human scout ally. Each land and ally you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color. After that, we have the White Lotus Reinforcements, 1 green-white for a 2/3 human soldier ally with vigilance, and other allies you control get +1/+1. And to round it out, we have Katara, the Water Tribe's Hope, 2 white, blue for a 3/3 human warrior ally with vigilance. And when Katara enters, create a 1/1 white ally creature token, and then Waterbend X. Creatures you control have base power and toughness, XX till end of turn, X can't be 0, activate only during your turn. So she is arguably one of my best finishers because I just make them all base whatever amount of mana I have to pour into it. And if I have a few creatures that I don't need to attack with, I can also tap them to pay the waterbending cost. But yeah, that's it. That's the new deck. I have only played it once so far, and it does not have what I would call an optimized mana base yet. But it's a lot of fun, and I think that's really all that's worth it. So anyway, I am going to call it here. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. All of my links can be found in my link tree in the description below. I would like to thank Ian Foss and Cody Mulvey of the band The Crypt for allowing me to use music for my opening and ending, along with Nate and Erica Jacobs for making my original logo. And I would also like to thank Christina McNichol for creating my new logo. And I'll see you next time.